No one believes it will happen. No one believes that it could happen until it does. That is normalcy bias, and that is optimism bias. It can't happen. That would never happen. That's normalcy bias. No, things like that won't happen. The New York Post reports Coast Guard and Navy are tracking Russian ships on long-distance missions sailing near Florida en route to Cuba. There's reports that about 25 miles off the coast of Florida, there is a Russian strike group, including a nuclear submarine. Now, according to U.S. sources, that nuclear submarine is not armed with nuclear missiles or torpedoes or whatever. It is just nuclear powered. But of course, we don't know for sure. And with the Russian Navy sitting ever so close to U.S. territory, Florida to be exact, you have to ask yourself if it's worth it. You see, the people in the United States will blindly march towards war, death, destruction, murder, chaos, etc., because they don't see it. They don't see it with their own eyes. Well, I tell you this. There's a strategy at play that we must be wary of. The question, the gambit for Russia is, will the American people recoil in horror if war comes to our shores, or will they demand retaliation? That's the challenge. Right now, you've got anti-war, anti-interventionist, libertarians, and conservatives saying we should not be involved in Ukraine. Democrats are desperately claiming that Russia is coming for Poland next, to which many of the libertarian MAGA, types say, I don't care about Poland either. We're the United States. We want to know why we are spending money in Ukraine. Well, I can tell you. I can break down for you at least a little bit, a rudimentary surface level version. I don't have security clearance or anything like that, so I don't know for sure. But I can give you the general breakdown. With Russia now, just outside of the United States, should they take any kind of action? Should the Americans witness war firsthand? They may ask themselves, was it really worth it in the end? Right now, it appears that Russia is winning. We've just sent another, I believe it was 61 billion. Let me make sure I'm getting this right, because I've been seeing some tweets going around. That was a few months ago. 61 billion was sent in April. $61 billion sent to Ukraine. And right now on the ground, there's international coalition fighting Russians. There's a video circulating of an international battalion fighting with Russians, calling them Russies or Ruskies or whatever. And they're American. Not all of them. But you can certainly hear at least one guy yelling with a North American English dialect. There's a British guy as well. They call it an international coalition. I have never been more angry watching a video. We are lied to. They cheat. They steal. They spit on us. They use the American men and women as cannon fodder in their imperialist, psychotic, garbage world vision. And I am just sick of it. And now here we are. I'll tell you what I want. I want to go down to Miami and sit on the beach. I want to ride my skateboard. Maybe take the old moped out for a cruise to get some barbecue. But the United States is hell-bent on securing the European economic bloc and expanding the liberal economic order. And that means we must control gas prices in Europe. And if Russia won't do as we tell them, we will take them by force. To the point now where U.S. HIMARS rockets, it's a little redundant saying that, but they're called HIMARS, they are rockets, have been fired into Russian territory. And our good friend neocons, or the National Review, say, who cares? Russia will never retaliate. Until they do, and your children learn of this war with their own eyes. Until you have to answer for dead civilians. For what? For Ukraine, so that NATO and the EU can keep expanding and pressing on Russia's border to expand the economic bloc to secure cheaper gas prices, natural gas prices, because Russia won't play ball. That's why the West blew up Nord Stream, and that's why we are at war in Ukraine, a country most people here in the U.S. can't point to on a map, because you are a servant to the machine. The United States is a vassal state to international military industrial complex scumbags. And that's why you've got North American dialect. That's why you've got British and New Zealand. That's why these people are on the ground in a foreign country fighting on the border with Russia. Because you, America, are a vassal state to an international cabal, multi-international corporations who want to blow people up and secure their liberal economic order. And you know what? I'm just so sick of these people. Now, don't get me wrong. They're not saints. I'm not going to sit here and defend Russia. They suck. China sucks. Right? And the argument is, be a vassal servant to a military-industrial complex, United States. Your will not be done, American citizen, because you are servants. So shut your mouth and generate tax revenue to support an economic system so they can go blow up kids in the Middle East. If we don't, China and Russia will take over. Well, I got news for all of you. China already is. And what we are doing, and I say we, considering we're a vassal state, maybe it's not appropriate, what NATO and Western forces are doing, none of it, nothing secures our interests. Instead, we allow TikTok. And now Donald Trump's even saying, oh, I'm not going to ban TikTok. So be it. The fall of empire. Perhaps the true goal of the international cabalist elite, whatever you want to call it, the military-industrial complex, NATO forces, whatever, perhaps the goal is let America dissolve. Let it dissolve into dust as y'all stand around facing blasphemy laws, riots, far-left extremists, and crackpot Joe Biden. Let it dissolve to avoid Thucydides' trap. We don't want to go to war with China. That would be World War III. So we're going to make sure this never happens. Well, here's the story for you from the New York Post. A flotilla of Russian warships passed within hailing distance of Florida's eastern coastline Tuesday, with the U.S. Navy and Coast Guard following close behind, according to open source maritime and air tracking information. The Coast Guard Cutter Stone Navy-guided missile destroyers, USS Truxton and USS Donald Cook, and the Royal Canadian Navy frigate HMCS Ville de Quebec sailed after 4 Russian vessels reportedly headed to Cuba, according to online maritime trackers, including Vessel Finder. Take a look at this. A screen grab shows 4 unknown ships followed by U.S. and Canadian military warships on Tuesday, June 11th, 2024. International waters, baby. Here's a Russian frigate Admiral Gorshkov taking part of an exercise on the use of high-precision weapons in the Atlantic Ocean. This is from June, a still image released June 11th, 2024 via Reuters. A Navy P-8 Poseidon surveillance aircraft was also spotted in the region. The Russian flotilla, which includes the frigate Admiral Gorshkov, tanker Academic Pashin, rescue tug Nikolai Chiker, and nuclear-powered submarine Kazan, is expected to make a port visit in Havana Wednesday through Monday. We may be looking at another Cuban Missile Crisis scenario with what the Russians are now doing in Cuba. But this is the game. And it's a smart game played by Vladimir Putin. And I don't like the guy, and I don't like Russia. Russia as a country is fine. Russian people, we get all that. The Russian government and Putin is an autocrat. I view him similar to how I view Biden. But you got to hand it to him. This is a power move. Power move indeed. This is a shock to the system by doing nothing for the American people. And perhaps they will then say, I don't want this. Here's a clip. International legion storming Russian position in close combat. We're not going to show the war footage. There's really nothing to see. But I'm not here to show you a bunch of guys with guns shooting. But I will play some audio for you that I want you to hear. And I'll play it for you now.
Bring it out! Push left into the entrance!
Push left into the entrance.
Throw frag! Filter left into the entrance!
That sounds like North American English. Now, later on in the video doesn't really show all that much. I got to be completely honest, right? I'm blurring it for good measure, I guess, on the principle of it. I don't like playing war footage, but it really is just guys shooting guns into dirt. They are in combat. You don't really see anything. There's no gore or anything like that, but I still just, would prefer. You can find it on Twitter. I retweeted it. Follow me on X. I say Twitter. Follow me on X at Timcast if you want to watch the full video. There's really, again, nothing in it. The audio is the interesting thing. North American English, there's British English, and you can tell. And it could be Canadian. The individual may, in fact, not even be American. They just may speak that way. We have no idea. But it really does sound like U.S. personnel operating in combat against the Russians flying the Ukrainian flag. I'm sorry. I am withholding. I am holding back my rage. You can show me 1,000,001 things. You can show me all the domestic culture war issues, and I will be impassioned and irritated. And I will say, why are we allowing such a thing? These far leftists, they're smashing windows. But this, if anything, makes me want to punch a hole in my own monitor. It's the international coalition fighting in Ukraine, the lies, the being spat on. You have no control over your country. The American people overwhelmingly do not want war. Doesn't matter what the American people want. This is a vassal state. Now, don't get me wrong. You get to live in luxury here. Just go along with it. Dance like marionettes for the machine, and you will live much more comfortably than anyone else. I despise these people so much. Orrin McIntyre had a great tweet. He said, Lord, give me the Donald Trump the left has created in their delusional minds. I agree. I wish. Not really, but, divine retribution would feel oh so good. What I'm hoping for is, and we won't get it. We will not get it. I'm hoping for a Donald Trump who comes in, appoints a good AG, and we get some criminal indictments. That's it. Some investigation, some indictments, some bad people who are in the entrenched bureaucracy in the deep state are forced to face accountability for their lying, their cheating, and their stealing. I hope Donald Trump moves towards securing the border, moves towards peace. Now, a really fascinating thing happened, right? Joe Biden is on his way to the G7 meeting. They're going to urge China to back away and stop. This is from Bloomberg. G7 to call on China to stop helping Russia's war in Ukraine. Let me see if I can find this Blinken quote, because I didn't have it pulled up. But it's really interesting and shows the... okay, I'm not going to be able to pull it up right now. But there was a quote they played on Fox earlier where I think it was Blinken. Maybe I'm wrong. I think it was Blinken saying that his message to Russia is that you will not outlast us. And you know what he's saying? If Donald Trump wins, the war is over. It's that simple. And they're hoping to win this war before Donald Trump takes the presidency. But I don't think they can, because Russia will outlast them unless the Democrats win. I'm at a loss for words, I see these videos of far leftists smashing and destroying, and there's nothing. There's no police. The police are scumbags. Look, there's a lot of good cops. I know. I've met them. Was hanging out in Mar-a-Lago. There were some cops down there. They're fans of the show. Respect. But I am just sick and tired of spineless, weak, pathetic men. Man, then I don't know what I can do. But I see these cops standing by and letting the far left do whatever they want. I don't understand. We only live in this country with this problem because they're not just, arresting these people. They say, I can't. We can't because they'll let them out. I don't care. Arrest them. Process as punishment, whatever you want to call it. The dude breaks the law. You arrest them. They don't. A single police officer guarding a war memorial getting things thrown at him and he doesn't do anything. Why? Man, if it were me, I'd be seeing red. If I was a police officer and a bunch of far leftists were desecrating a war memorial and I was standing there and they threw things at me, I would just laser focus on any one of them and then I'd go to arrest them. That's it. That's what you do. Assaulting an officer, felony. He doesn't. And what's the fear? That the mob will beat you up or something? I don't know that I'd care. The problem is weak men refuse to engage. What do you think would happen if a cop tried to arrest on his own a far leftist who had desecrated a war memorial and assaulted him, and the mob beat the cop up? You see, it's because I'm sorry, man. The left, they are strong. They are strong. They are crazy. They are brave. They are determined. They have more passion in the tip of their pinky finger than the average conservative has in their whole body. The average leftist has more insanity, strength, determination, anger in the tip of their pinky finger than conservatives do. Now, I don't want to see conservatives act a fool like Antifa. We don't like Antifa. I want to see police officers do their job and help maintain order in this country. Unfortunately, what we have right now in this country are passive, spineless losers and losers who are insane and enraged. Now, of course, don't get me wrong. There are people who are much stronger, few and far between. A handful of them in Congress, maybe, doing what they can do. A handful of good cops out there that you see actively trying to stop the bad guys. But for the most part, they just do as they're told. We are on the... Man, it's fascinating because the caliber of men at the time of the American Revolution, something fierce. If the founding fathers came back from the past today, I mean, obviously they'd be shocked by like modern technology and they'd probably vomit looking at Times Square. But in terms of this country, many people say that the founding fathers would be dropping bodies by now. They wouldn't. They'd be sending strongly worded letters. I think that's an important thing to understand. That it was, I bring this up a lot, a year and 1 month into the Revolutionary War before the founding fathers actually voted on independence. And it wasn't even like clear cut. I think people said like, I don't know if this is true, New York basically abstained, but then went along with it anyway. Quebec outright said no. They have 14 colonies. There were actually more colonies. Quebec was like, no, we're not interested. And they're like, okay, I guess we got 13. And they agreed. The war was ongoing. The shot heard around the world was a year and 1 month before. The founding fathers would be organizing, however. They'd be petitioning, and perhaps they'd be doing exactly what we're saying. So I don't know. You know, a lot of people say that they'd be shocked and dismayed, but maybe this is it. You know, it's a different system, but maybe this November is it. Donald Trump is certainly no saint. He's not going to descend like an angel who's going to save you from everything. But he is an avatar of hope for a lot of people. And it's funny because Trump, certainly I wouldn't it's funny to describe him as an avatar of hope, but he represents rage and hope. It really does. For the average person, they see this guy who's brash, angry, and wants revenge, and they think maybe he will be the guy to kick the door in, storm into the system, and just clean it all out. Maybe not. I don't know. But I can tell you this. There is a tsunami coming regardless. I do not see everything happening in this country. I don't see what's going on with Russia and Ukraine. I don't see war, conflict, crisis, the Democratic Party, the lying, the cheating, the stealing. And I don't see an off-ramp. National divorce in this country would certainly just become World War III. China would immediately make moves to seize territory, Taiwan, for instance. Already the conflict. I think you've got. Let me pull up the map. You've got conflicts with, of course, India and Pakistan. But then you also have China's now engaging in war, I believe, with India. I'm going to pull up the map here. We have the territorial disputes on Google Maps. And so I think it's, I forgot where you can see the border disputes right here. So, you know, the fighting's happening. The fighting's happening, and the U.S. is a somewhat stabilizing force. It's a good thing. And the reason it is because of hegemonic power. But what they are doing is unsustainable. I think Donald Trump recognizes this. I think Trump saw that what we are doing, and he called out Bush, said your brother lied to us. I think Trump sees this. The hegemonic power of the United States cannot maintain itself in this way. None of it makes sense. The system is on the verge of buckling. The recession, the Great Recession, is proof the system is going to fail, and Russia and China are preparing for it. What do you get? Barack Obama says, just keep going forward and we will destroy anyone in our path. Donald Trump said, that's not going to work. And then when you fall, you will fall hard. The Trump plan. Recognizing the end of American hegemonic power means we must secure our borders, get rid of these awful treaties like TPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership. We must bring jobs back to this country. We need trade protectionism. That's what he was doing with these tariffs to strengthen the internal U.S. economy so that people here can live comfortably and functionally in the event that we see international collapse. The Democrat approach is, no, We will not lose. We will burn this world to ash before we allow that to happen. So here you are. Oh, there's big news too. I mean, I'm just too much. I'm just so pissed off. I'm just ranting. Russia and Belarus begin second stage of tactical nuclear weapons drills. Oh, this story is from this morning. You know, your children, they will learn of this war with their own eyes. Certainly for now, it is fought on some far-off battlefield. But Russia's got a choice to make. If they are being attacked by the U.S., and that's the point of playing that audio, then Russia can just say one thing. And I think about this tactically. What will Russia do? If the United States wants to bring pain to Ukraine and to Russian forces on our border, Russia will bring the pain right back. Their mentality may be that Americans need to see the war firsthand so that they recoil and pull back. It could backfire. In the event that Russia does engage in some kind of strike on U.S. territory, it could just be a casus belli. Democrats say, see, we told you Russia was bad. But if Russia engages in some kind of conflict, not directly on the U.S., but in a way that the United States can feel, that may actually do something. For instance, if they go to Cuba and then, I don't know, provide weapons and say, we want you to be armed to the teeth. If they begin stationing Russian troops in Cuba, the U.S. is going to say, look, Russia's preparing for war against us. And then Vladimir Putin comes out and says, you are already at war with us. We are only preparing for the event that you drop a nuke or something. Russia could then say plainly to the public, withdraw your forces from our border and we will withdraw ours. That's the negotiation. That will be devastating, I believe, for any administration. Not for Trump. I mean, I suppose for Biden. If Trump's in office, he's going to say, we don't want our troops there anyway. We're done. We're not funding it anymore. They've already prepared a bill to make sure Ukraine keeps getting funding even if Trump wins. That's why they're saying you cannot last us. The Ukraine funding bill goes into September of next year. So even if Trump wins, he can't just get rid of legislation. Now, Congress could. And I think that's the right move. In the meantime, World War III, maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I just watched that video of the combat. And it's just, these aren't Ukrainians fighting. These are not Ukrainians fighting. These are scumbag mercenaries. Worst pieces of human filth you can think of. Disgusting human waste. International coalition of mercenaries fighting in Ukraine. Before I wrap up, I'll give you the quick gist so you can understand what's going on. And this is very rudimentary. But I can tell you this. If what I'm saying is wrong or only surface level, the fault lies with the military-industrial complex lying and withholding information to the American people. And that is exactly why I'm pissed off. You cannot push us into World War III, war, conflict, or otherwise, lying to us and keeping us in the dark. It all goes back, long ways actually. It goes back further and further and further, and it can be reduced. But we can go back to the Qatar-Turkey pipeline, which I bring up quite a bit. It's funny because I've been tracking the story for a long time. The U.S. wanted a pipeline from Qatar through Syria, Turkey, into Europe to offset the Gazprom natural gas monopoly, which Gazprom is Russian gas that travels through Ukraine. Russia also has Nord Stream. Well, Syria said, no, we're allied with Russia. We won't let you build the pipeline. Then Iran said, how about we build the pipeline through Iraq, Syria, into Turkey? And then Russia controls that too, strengthening Russian control over natural gas in Europe, driving up prices and keeping the EU economic bloc kind of held back. The West is concerned, this is what they claim, about the expanding Chinese bloc. And so because of this, they need economic expansion in Europe. That's NATO forces. Syria was overthrown. Bashar al-Assad was called a tyrant because, well, a civil war happened. Although I think it's fair to assume it's because he blocked the U.S. Bashar al-Assad said outright, Russia is my ally. We will not allow you to build this. That brings us to Ukraine. This is where Gazprom runs through the country and supplies around 20% or more of natural gas into Europe. Nord Stream 2 was blown up by the West. They blamed Russia for blowing up their own pipeline, but you have to be a moron to believe that. And now Russia can run gas through Gazprom. Russia requires resources. It's really interesting as this conflict is going on because Russia still has to sell oil. Cutting off Russia from the Black Sea by taking Ukraine means they can no longer sell in the Mediterranean. It means they will struggle to sell into Europe with control of their pipeline in Ukraine, now under NATO control. It puts them right on the border. So, breaking point. If U.S. and NATO take Ukraine, a Russian naval base in Crimea is now cut off. The only access they have is the Crimean Bridge. It's very, very long, but an easy military target to take out. They needed land access, the Donbass region. This is why when Biden gets in office and the agenda kicks back in, Russia said, we are securing the Donbass land bridge. We are taking Crimea. We will not be cut off from the Black Sea. In my opinion, the reason Russia attacked from the north through Belarus into Kiev and Kharkiv, and the reason they're still maintaining that, is to split Ukrainian forces. It's multiple paths towards victory. Russia wants the Donbass land bridge. They've secured that. But by keeping pressure on Kiev and Kharkiv and other cities, they force U.S. forces to stay split because they can't give up Kiev. In the event Russia begins to lose, they likely will view this as an existential threat and then begin the use of tactical nuclear weapons on the battlefield, nuclear, artillery, or otherwise. This is where we are. It's a bit more complicated than that. The argument from the West is that China is expanding too rapidly, and Europe, being the largest economic bloc in the world, needs also to expand rapidly. So they flood Europe with as many people as possible. They don't care if they function or don't, and they're trying to get cheap energy to expand rapidly to compete with China. Well, doesn't seem to be working, does it? And this is where we're currently at. And that's why they say Russia is our biggest threat, not China, because China actually is. But they're trying to win that through a Cold War means. But in the end, we face Thucydides' trap. When a rising economic power is about to supplant the dominant global economic power, war breaks out. At least there's a tendency for it. I say the Trump approach makes the most sense. Or perhaps I'm wrong about all of it. Perhaps I'm wrong about the real reasons. Maybe, I don't know, aliens came and they're fighting in Ukraine. Sure, whatever. In that case, whatever the real reason may be, they have withheld it from the American people, and they have disqualified themselves from using our men and women, our weapons, our money, or otherwise. But it's an international coalition of mercenaries. Volunteers, they call it. I say, any one of these people that fought in Ukraine, an American citizen, as a private individual, if it were me, I would say you are exiled. You will not be welcome here. You will not be welcome to buy our food. I'm disgusted by all of it. I'll leave it there. We'll see how things go. Hopefully we don't all die in hellfire. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.